We're starting to chip away at his reptile. There's my holo, and now we're full squad mode. What's going on, Axie fam? Elijah here, back with another video, and today I'm going to be looking at a new build I have been playing just a little bit, and that's a summoner build. Right now, we're sitting at rank 83 in the top 100, and that's mostly from playing this here, the Banish build with Topaz on the backline beast, a super strong team comp, which I recently made a video on. I will leave a link to that in the description, but today I'm going to be looking at a summoner build. As I mentioned, I'm calling this one squad goals because that's how it feels when you execute. You got a whole bunch of stuff on your side of the battlefield, which is actually really cool. And let's go ahead and take a look at it. So up front, I've got a plant with healing pulse. This is going to actually keep my summons alive, specifically the birds that have 18 HP, but lose 8 HP when the turn ends. Well, if I'm regaining 4, this extends their life significantly, as we're going to see in the game that I show as an example. I've got Hollow as my plant summon, as well as Robin. This gives me 2 options of filling up the battlefield with my plant, and that's one of the key components with this build, is I want to make sure I have multiple places where I can hit and take over the board and gain a lot of support from these cards. Everywhere else, I just beefed up with Vitality Charms. I think it's most important there for my plant specifically. I have Carrot. I think this is actually a really good card in Origin, whereas in V2 it wasn't. You gain an energy when you cause HP loss to the target, which is usually the case. So it's 40 damage, free card basically. You get an energy back. It's not too shabby. And then if I'm playing it with Robin, by the way, it's going to do 16 more damage. So 56 damage, free energy. It's a nice boost to those base stats. Cactus is fairly decent damage. Siri is really nice damage. And this card is still bugged. You actually don't need to discard anything from your hand. It'll give you an option right now to do it. You can just hit enter and then you'll lose no cards. So they need to fix that. But for now, it's yeah, really a nice one for support up front. With my beast, I have Chubby and Hidden Razor. That is just a very nice way to start a match. The bleed lasts a really long while right now. I think longer than it's supposed to. I just started using this build, so we'll have to see. It says here 2 turns, but like I said, it's definitely more than that. Your opponent loses 15 HP every time that they play a card. So you put it on Chubby, it's a 2 energy cost, but you're now putting pressure onto all 3 of his Axies, which can help you gain an edge over the long run in the game. Some synergy here with Nyan. I do 15 bonus damage against bleeding targets. Goda is an amazing card. It's usually best if you have multiple on your team, which I don't specifically right now, but essentially it shuffles a void into your opponent's discard pile. Eventually, at some point in the game, they are going to draw this back into their hand and lose an energy when they do, and they're losing one of their card slots. So sometimes people draw 2 voids at once and they only have 1 energy to work with in the round, and it's crippling. I expect this to perhaps get nerfed at some point. We're gonna have to see. Cottontail for energy. Ronin, which is a little lackluster in this specific build, but can sometimes do some decent damage. I don't know if this beast is the best at the midline, but no one really knows like exactly what is best in general right now. Everyone's experimenting. I have Pangolin's Scale on it. Huge damage reduction. I think this is one of the best runes out there. And since I'm at the mid, I don't really think it's worth it to go with the more popular, perhaps, Endless Anger, which gradually allows you to work up into Fury mode by gaining rage every turn. I don't think I'm as guaranteed to get that at the midline as opposed to being on the back line, for instance, where I'm way more likely to activate that rage and get into Fury mode. So I think as a tankier, more durable midline, it's good to have Pangolin's Skin. And then my bird on the back line here, Holy Prayer. This is actually a dawn, not a bird. And this is one of the best ways to combat those curse cards. An insanely nice rune, which I think we'll probably start to see more of. When your turn starts, remove 1 curse in your deck, heal all teammates for 10 HP, and grant all teammates 1 damage boost. Pretty insane. And actually, that text there is inaccurate because unless they just hotfixed it, this actually, I think, removes 2 curse cards. I was talking to Ryan about this the other day. I'm not sure. Let's see in the replay how many get removed. But other than that, I've got damage on my cards. This is, no back doors on any of this. It's all going through the front. The Grandma's Fan with Chubby can also be some nice synergy. It attacks all enemies and applies vulnerable. They take 20% more damage. It's a small boost. I think there's better builds to have Grandma's Fan on though, like higher AoE builds or backdoor builds, but it's one that I just kind of had to fit in there. Double Talk, amazing card, puts your opponent to sleep. They basically lose a turn, and you want to make sure you have Rocket Stamp on that so you can always target any enemy that you need to. You have to get this bonus by playing it initially as your first card. So if you go through the front and you play this card and put the frontliner to sleep by playing it first, then you're not going to be able to play 2 of your other cards, which is obviously pretty terrible. terrible. That is the general idea of the comp. And now I'm going to jump into a very close match I played with Super Slayzen, who is someone I have faced quite a bit in V2, a very tough opponent. He's running an interesting build with a Dawn up front. Same thing, Holy Prayer here. Really nice rune to start seeing more, especially as there's a ton of curse cards out there. I hope Axie fixes this where if you pause the replay and you click an Axie, you can still see their charms, because right now you can't. So it'll be a little hard to explain exactly what he has. Essentially, the main point though with his build is this backliner is absolutely insane. I haven't played it personally, but right now Wall Gecko's kind of broken. You lose 50 HP, but you take 30% less damage for 4 turns, and you can stack this up to like 60% damage reduction. You're also able to heal a ton with Regenerator, and again, a bit of an amateur on how those mechanics work, still learning, but you'll get to see later on what I'm talking about. This thing is very, very hard to kill. You also have Razor Bite as a way to heal. Let's just jump right into the action. So I get the Chubby round 1 draw. You can see 50 damage across the board, and they're all going to take bleed. They lose 15 HP when playing a card. So we can see here that this will be 1 round for him. We'll try to keep track of how often that happens. While he's making his moves, you can see he's cycling through Zeals there to get the card draw he wants. He applies vulnerable to all 3 of my Axies. Okay, so he's got Pocky there, which you saw actually attacks a random enemy and applies taunt to it for 2 turns. So he ends up hitting my Beast, which is going to put a target on his back, and now anything he plays is going to do damage to that Beast. Luckily, the Pangolin skin coming in handy here. 132 damage still though. That has to do with him cycling and spending energy. Pretty insane damage for sure. There's my double talk. I place it on his Beast just because it's sort of useless on his Reptile, as he mostly has defensive cards and low damage cards. Even though I just saw the Beast play a bunch of cards, it still seems like the most logical place to go, as I need to go through the front a little bit as well. And as I mentioned, if I put this bird to sleep and then hit it, I would actually lose that benefit of the sleep ability. It would wake him back up and he wouldn't lose a turn. So that's kind of the one place I had to go with my attack there. I get to use Eggshell in this situation, another phenomenal card in Origin, and it was really, really great in V2 for my entire career in V2. And this is just going to put target on my bird's back, which, you know, basically is another way of making him waste a turn. He has to put some damage into the backliner, and if he doesn't have any backdoor attacks to finish off this bird, it's kind of just a waste of energy. So you can see he's not really accomplishing much here. He does some nice damage, but we stay fairly healthy, about halfway with our HP. You notice earlier that I also have played Mavis at this point. This bird is really, really nice. It actually reduces the energy of one of my attack cards each round. So here you can see my Goda went from costing 1 to 0, and I think it just chooses a random attack card. But basically, as long as I keep that bird alive, it's almost like I start every turn with 4 energy instead of 3, which is pretty insane. I also have the Robin back here, again doing the 16 damage bonus for the rest of my Axies, and that actually stacks. So if I get 2 Robins, I'm doing 32 bonus damage on all of my Axies. Essentially, getting 2 birds on the back is really kind of my goal, one way or the other. 2 Robins, or more likely than not with this build, you know, 1 and 1. And it leaves me a spot up front for the hollow on my plant, which is going to summon a tree trunk, and that trunk is going to have taunt, as we'll see later. All right, we're still banging on the front door here. We finish this thing off with the Goda. We shuffle 1 Void into the opponent's deck. I could probably improve this Beast at the midline. There's the Nyan for big damage on his Beast, and we're now making progress. But I know that this backliner is extremely difficult. Even though it looks like I'm way ahead here, it's not exactly the case because of how this thing can actually go into Blood Moon and win the game by like basically being indestructible. You can see there the Freezard, right? That's a card that randomly apply effect 4 times to your team. So basically this card, when he gets down to just his Reptile, since the only Axie he can randomly target, in that case if there's one left, is the Reptile, he's going to heal up for 120 damage, which is disgusting. It makes this thing an absolute monster. So here, starting again 3 energy, but you're gonna see one of these cards get dropped to only costing 0. Sometimes there's the Cactus. That was a 0 cost for me. And you can see now I still have 3 more energy to work with. I get rid of the Beast. We're starting to chip away at his Reptile. There's my holo, and now we're full squad mode. Basically, every slot that I can use is filled up right now. The trunk up front, the 2 birds on the back. All my Axies are very weak, but I have so much support and ammunition here. I get the extra energy from Mavis each round. He doesn't have any AoE, so it's hard for him to eliminate these pesky birds on the back line. This is the type of team, if you were in a tournament and you knew you were going against someone who didn't have like many AoE options in his roster, you could bust this out and be in really good shape. So here we see him going after my bird as I applied Eggshell, I think, last round. But there's that extra value. Still alive, 84 HP. I choose Grandma Fan. Basically just going to play my whole hand here. The Blackmail is going to be free. I can use all of my cards. The Cottontail, I don't get anything out of it in terms of energy gain. I do think I play it to banish it, though, to thin out the deck a little bit, especially because I know I've got free energy on the back line. So I'd rather just have more options and not redraw that card. That's why I play it. This animation takes forever. I go through like twice sometimes. Hopefully they can just make that all in one swoop. I'm talking about the Leafs there. So yeah, I mean, it goes up to 133 shield. He also has one of his secrets here, I think in Pumpkin. Wait, why does he have Pumpkin? That's not right. He has something that reflects 25% of damage, and I think that is Scaly Spoon is what he uses there. So I'm really trying to put the pressure on. There's the carrot. That's going to give me another energy. I actually had choices here. You didn't see it, but I had the double talk. I thought, does it make sense to put him to sleep for 1 round so he can do nothing and then bring in a bunch of attack cards? But I do have quite a few cards that I could draw that don't do that much damage. So I thought maybe I would lose a step by waiting, and I decided to just go all in on damage and end with the double talk. It puts him down to 74, which is actually really, really good for me. And we're going to go into Blood Moon soon, which means I finally am going to lose my birds, which is pretty sad. But you're going to get to see Freezard here, which I had just told you about. Randomly apply this 4 times. There's another Wall Gecko where he'll lose half of his HP, but he's going to start taking 30% damage reduction, and he's also just going to heal up a ton here. He goes all the way back up to 160 HP because he has bleed on him. He heals up with the Razor Bite a little more. There's Blood Moon. Birds are gone. Plant is gone. This is getting extremely close. I've got my Beast. I've got my Dawn on the back line here. Can I finish this guy off? And there's the other double talk. We redraw it. We get to put him to sleep. He literally has no choices, no options that he can use in the upcoming round. Blood Moon puts him down to 114 as well, and I think at this point he knows, since he's going to be completely stuck, that there's no hope. I'll draw more damage cards, even with 30% reduction and another Blood Moon. It's not going to be enough. He actually ends up resigning here, I believe. Yeah, no, that's it. He lets it go. I would have been able to get it done there with my cards, and that's, you know, a bit of a look at the Summoner build. Crazy one. I definitely don't have it fleshed out. Do not go buy Axies right now. This is Origin. It's in constant flux. We're in beta. It's super early. We probably won't even know what exactly is like good or premium to play with in the first season until like 2 months from now. So just, you know, whatever Axies you have, experiment with the runes and charms. They're all available to you, which is fantastic. You can just play around with them. And, you know, maybe buy a cheap Axie here and there, you know, to experiment with. And on that note, I'm going to wrap up this video. I look forward to covering new builds in the future. Let me know what you want to see in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.